So you're back on home turf, David, after how long in the States?
5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
What was the catalyst to your return then?
Yeah, so I'll first off say I loved the States. It was a great experience, and I was truly privileged to lead a great company for 5 years over there, and had a nice lifestyle and a really interesting, a different market, and it was a fantastic experience and a great chapter in my life. And I'm very, very happy that I did that. I always thought we'd stay maybe 5 to 7 years would be was my thinking when we moved over there. So it was a couple of years early that we came back, and that was down to Textron were doing a reorganisation of their manufacturing between Jacobson and EasyGo, and the consequence of that was we would have to have kind of moved from where we were in Charlotte, North Carolina, down to Georgia, and it just felt like it was like an inflection point, you know, in the business, and it just felt like it was the right time for us to think about coming home. And so whilst, you know, I felt very odd for a few months after I left, having it being such a huge part of my life, to leave there was a big deal. And but fortunately I left on very, very good terms with everybody. A lot of those guys I still consider friends, both in America and over here. And you know, I wish them nothing but the best for the future themselves. And I know, you know, I've had some very nice comments and you know, best wishes from those guys as well. So yeah, I you know, I keep in touch with a lot of those people, and yeah, I kind of miss them, but it's good to be home. No, it wasn't, to be honest. I didn't know what I was going to do, really. We half thought about, you know, I half kind of thought about, do I want to retire? Yeah. We really got back here in about the middle of the year, sort of late April, you know, May, June time kind of thing. By the time we unwound everything, because I owned a house in the US and all kinds of other things I had to kind of unwind, as it were. Yep. So by the time I got all that unwound and came back here, it was yeah, May, June time. And I played a lot of golf. My handicap didn't go down though, which was a bit distressing. But anyway, I did play a lot of golf. But it was like, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was time yet somehow. And so I did a bit of consulting work, which kind of kept me in touch with people. Yep. And I did make sure that I did keep in touch with, you know, both customers that I traded with, dealers that I traded with, suppliers that I traded with, and so on. And I just kept that, you know, in the same way that I did when I was at work. I kept that kind of just regular rhythm of just keeping in touch with people and making sure that you got that. So I kept that going, and yeah, I was chatting with the guys from Iseki, you know, in the same way as I was with the guys from Smithco and Turfco and all the other, you know, people that I've known over donkey's years, sort of thing. And they started to talk about, you know, was this something that I'd be interested in? And you know, it just felt like it was a comfortable move for me. Yeah. You know, it would be very hard for me to go to a company that competed with where I'd been. Yeah. I think to the point where I don't think I could do it. I just, it would be really, really hard for me to go to one of the core competitors for Textron. And this wasn't. This was...
You'd feel a traitor, would you?
I don't know if my heart would be in it.
Right.
And then I don't know if you really do a good job if your heart's not in it.
No, you don't.
And whereas this I can put my heart into. These are people that I've known for years. This is a product I've been selling for years. You know, I'm very familiar with it. I'm very comfortable with it. I don't feel any embarrassment or you know, now I'm selling this one rather than the other one. So I've always been selling this one as well. And so it was a very comfortable position for me to move into. And I know the UK market pretty well, and you know, I've traded with him over here for a long time, and it's felt, again, you know, I don't want to keep using the word, but it's felt very comfortable getting back to it again. You know, I mean, all the dealers pretty much I knew, and a lot of the big customers I knew, and so on. So it was a matter of reforming those relationships because I've been gone for 5 or 6 years. But yeah, it's not been difficult to drop back into it again.
Certainly seems like you've got a twinkle in your eye now you're back, David. While you were in the States for 5 years, how in touch with what was going on in the UK were you?
Yeah, I probably was pretty much. I mean, Alan Prickett would probably tell you more than he wanted me to be. But I, yeah, I was still back here probably every couple of months to kind of keep in touch. It's very hard to let go of something that you're really, sort of fond of and interested in. And so it was a little bit difficult to let go, but I let Alan ran it, and he did a great job over here, and I had a lot to do in America. So I would guess initially perhaps I was more involved, and then probably over the period of the 5 years I backed away a little bit over time, as there was I did a couple of acquisitions over there and various other things that were very time consuming and needed a lot of attention immediately after doing. So it's like all these things, you kind of tend to go typically where there's stuff that needs sorting out.
So back to the future then. Where do you see this project going over the next 5 years? What's the grand plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think talking with my Japanese colleagues on what their expectations are is that we need to double the business over a 5-year period. Okay. Which is a pretty big goal.
It is, yeah.
I think it's doable. I think it's a stretch, but I think it is doable. The market share that we have here is lower than our colleagues in France and Germany enjoy, with the same products and the same competitors and the same price point. So I think there is an opportunity for us to grow our share in existing markets as well as to expand into these other markets, as I mentioned earlier. But no, that's very much what we're focused on here. And whilst the first 3 or 4 months, in all honesty, have been hand to mouth, is how I would describe it. Okay. We started, there was only 5 full-time employees, and we walked into this building, and it was there was no phone point, there was no computer system, there was no computers, there was no furniture, there was no nothing. And literally, you can imagine, we walked in here with nothing, and we had to start a business, and we did it pretty quickly, I think. And whilst we had a few hiccups on the way, as absolutely inevitable that we would have done. Sure. I think right now our parts service is very good. I think it's actually probably improved on where it was in prior years, just because of the stock holding that we're able to put in place. And, I think we've got a lot of inventory out there now, so we're able to supply our customers quickly. Customer care team is in place and so on. So we're much more established now than we were even, 2 months ago. And fast forward another 2 months, we'll probably have 3 more employees. And so we're still in that building phase. So this year I think will be a holding year, if I can put it that way. Really establish ourselves, make sure the business runs and functions and is a coherent entity, if you like. And then next year really will be more focused on the marketing, on pushing it out, and making sure that we're starting to hit those market sectors that we talked about earlier, that we'd be kind of developing these strategies around. So yeah, but a lot to do to hit that, sure. And I'm sure my competitors will be saying, "No, we're not going to let you do that," and it's not going to be easy. But I think there is a real opportunity, and there's no doubt. I think there's a warmth out there for us. Okay. I feel like when I talk to the dealers, talk to customers and stuff, there's kind of a nice feeling there, and I feel like we're getting some attention from people perhaps we weren't getting as much attention from before.
So reaction from the market's been positive.
I've had no negatives. I mean, other than in those first couple of weeks when we were slightly chaotic, and there's a couple of people who rang me go, "Oh, where's this, that and the other." But I mean, totally understandable. We were in that transition phase. Yeah. But I think since then, no, it's been really, really positive. And yeah, it's been good. It's been really good, actually. We obviously Ransom's had a desire to get rid of all their inventory and make sure they didn't make a loss and all that kind of stuff. So we bought pretty much all the inventory from them. Obviously, the people transferred across, which was a huge relief to me. Yeah. The idea that I was going to turn up here on January the 1st or whatever, and into this building with nothing here on my own was a bit of a shock. But it worked well. Obviously from a Ransom's point of view, these people were dedicated to Iseki and therefore were no longer required. And from our point of view, they were absolutely required. And so the transfer of those people meant there was no redundancy costs or any of that kind of stuff going on for Ransom's. And no, absolutely, they've been gentlemanly throughout, and it's been good from that point of view.
So there's been a few bumps on the road, David, but for you personally, starting the business from scratch, How's that been?
Yeah, it was. I'd say around Christmas time, it was pretty full on. Just trying to get things in place, if you like. It's very interesting actually. I've been in business for a long time, but there's stuff you know and there's stuff you don't know, because there's bits you leapfrog almost. You know, my background was sales and marketing, as you know, product management, that kind of thing, and so you move up. I've never had to deal with VAT before. I've always had teams of people who dealt with VAT and things for me. So, you know, and there's stuff like that that are just gaps in your knowledge. So you know this stuff really well, but actually, and you might know this at a high level, but actually underneath it, there's gaps in your knowledge. And definitely I found that, you know, even dealing with sort of spare parts. In theory, I've known about spare parts, but I've always had people who've kind of dealt with it for me. And so it was quite interesting. You know, there were occasions where it was like, crikey, how does this work then? But, you know, I'd got a lot of friends and people who've done this kind of stuff before who I shamelessly called and got them to help me and so on. But, yeah, that came across to me. But that's good. That's learning, right? That's, you know, it's continuous learning. And, that's good. I think we learn all our lives, don't we? You're never the finished article. You've always got to learn and learn and learn. So that was good for me, I think, on a personal basis, learning that. And, yeah, it was... You know, it's like all these things, right? It was full on for a while, but it's, you know, as you get more people on board, as you get, you know, there were milestones that I wanted to hit. And pretty much, you know, we might have missed one by a week or a few days, but we pretty much hit the milestones that we had in place for us. And yeah, it's been a fun ride.
So have you found this a culture shock? I mean, you've spent the last 5 years as president of a multinational company. Do you think it's changed you as a person?
I like to think I'm the same person, but it is different. It is different. A lot of that is what the people bring to you, perhaps, rather than what you bring to them in some ways. So, you know, you'd meet somebody and it was like, oh, great, you know, this guy's the president of Jacobson.
Yeah.
You know, ooh. And whereas now it's, oh, it's Sally Withers. So I think people are more relaxed with me because of that. And normally you had tiers of management, you know, between you and other people. And so there was that difficulty of that. And a lot of that's obviously gone now. You know, we're kind of all in this together. And I think because everybody kind of joined January the 1st and we all walked into this building together empty, there is kind of a team camaraderie here of a small group of people, you know, kind of fighting against the odds to get this going. So yeah, I mean, there's no question it's hugely different than what I was before. And there's bits of what I used to do that I miss, and there's bits that I absolutely don't miss.
Probably the expense account you might miss.
Well, that was nice, yes. Yes, flying at the back of the bus is not as much fun as flying at the front. But anyway, that's another story. But you can make decisions. You're not tied up with lawyers. You're not tied up with a lot of other policy stuff that might come your way. And what you're doing feels more real sometimes. Yeah, it's good and bad with everything, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like any job. It doesn't matter which job you've got. You've always got bosses. It doesn't matter who you are. You've always got bosses, whether it's the shareholders or the voters or, you know, whatever job you're in, or the wife, exactly, yeah. So you've always got bosses, and it's just, it's different, but I'm enjoying it. You know, it's a different, it feels more like what I was doing 20 years ago.
So is the reaction when you walk out on the warehouse floor different to what it was in the States?
Completely different. Yeah.
So you're there helping the guys.
Yeah, I've been picking and packing parts this morning because somebody was, you know, so you know, I do that. Whereas, you know, in the States, whilst, you know, I never felt I was too remote because I did, you know, try and get involved and all the rest of it. But inevitably, if you've got 4 or 5 plants and you've got, you know, umpteen facilities and 1,000 people, you can't be as intimate with them, or probably the wrong word, but do you know what I mean? As close to them as you can be when there's 15 of you.
And if you'd have turned up picking and packing,
well, they'd wonder what was going on.
Yeah. Why is he watching me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They wouldn't have let me do it probably. So
wouldn't have been in keeping.
No, it wouldn't. So it's just different.